But first, it's extraordinary, isn't it, how we're twisting ourselves into knots over something that used to be crystal clear. Indeed, if you follow the science, as we're told we must, is crystal clear right down to the chromosomes. Only a handful of years ago, gender was as different as night and day. You're either male or you were female. And yes, there was a tiny minority of people who were transgender. Indeed, data from last census has it well under 1%. But the whole point of being transgender was that you transitioned. You went from being a man to being a woman or vice versa. And sure, the process of transitioning was and still is complex and involved, and for some a process that could take years, indeed harrowing for many. There was never any doubt among those determined to transition, among those having the courage needed to embark on something so radical, about the destination to which they were headed. In those simpler days, just a few years back, being pro-trans meant accepting that transgender people were really male or really female, depending on which way they went. And full disclosure here, one of my friends for over a decade now is Kate McGregor. I admire her for all her intellectual achievements, of course, but also as someone who has made the incredibly brave, honest and demanding journey from being a man to a woman. But now, so says the activists and indeed the law in jurisdictions like Victoria, we are supposed to accept that a man can wake up one morning, decide that in fact he's really a female, announce his new identity, and then be accepted without question or qualification as a woman, and be able to compete in women's sport, use a female toilet, if in jail, to be placed in a female prison. Overnight. Overnight. Nothing at all commensurate with Kate's journey. In some Australian states, there are even proposals to allow people legally to change their gender as often as every 12 months, should they wish, without the need to take any of the difficult steps that people like Kate have taken in order to be what they regard as their true selves. In Victoria, there's a current law in place, in fact, right now. I think it even includes if you're 16 years and older, your parents don't need to be involved. Apart from the fact that gender bears a crucial relationship to what our bodies actually are, if gender is simply what you decide it is at any given time, what does it say about the long struggle for female equality? What was the point of fighting for more than 100 years for the right of women to vote, to stand for Parliament, to be anything they want to be, if men can wipe away these gains by deciding overnight that they're suddenly women? But there's an even deeper problem than the urgent insistence that gender is just a matter of personal choice now. It's the pylon against anyone who dissents from this latest article of politically correct faith. Martina Navratilova, not exactly a traditional conservative, was monstered into recanting her view that biological men should not compete in women's sport. J.K. Rowling, again hardly a traditional conservative, is in the process of being cancelled because she questioned this new orthodoxy. One of my university lecturers, Professor Sheila Jeffries, a pioneering lesbian feminist, well, she's been hounded out of academic life because she insisted that women's gains were for women and not for anyone who merely claimed they were a woman. But it gets worse. Not only are the warriors for gender fluidity denying the right of others to a contrary view, even though it's the view that was regarded as self-evident until recently, they're now using the law to intimidate people into silence or to claim that someone who supports the rights of women is automatically someone who hates transgender people. When you use me as an example, I've shown you tonight that's a lie. Later tonight, I'll interview the young and relatively new Tasmanian Senator Claire Chandler. She published an article about what she called the reality of biological sex and has now been hauled before the Tasmanian Equal Opportunity Commission for supposedly illegal conduct. To offend, and I'm quoting here, to offend, humiliate, insult or ridicule another person on the basis of gender or sexuality. According to the Tasmanian Human Rights Commissioner, the Senator's words showed that she was, quote, someone who considers people who are born male and then seek to live as female lives should not have access to female toilets, facilities or sport. This view, the Commissioner said, was, quote, problematic and potentially direct discrimination against males with a female gender identity, and that the Hobart man who complained should not be subjected to material which the Commissioner said was arguably offensive to trans people. So if you speak out for the traditional view of gender, you won't just be subject to the cancel culture, you can also be called before the speech police and potentially subject to legal penalty. Honestly, how on earth did we get here? How on earth did we get here, and is anyone prepared to do anything about it?